Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm in a mood today. I don't know why I'm in such a good mood, but I am. I haven't even had coffee yet.
You're good?
Wait, what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I just said, did you say you're in a good mood?
Yeah, I'm in a good mood today. I've been
Oh,
working out a lot lately, so maybe it's just like the fucking effects of that.
sorry.
What are you drinking?
Coffee, actually.
Coffee?
hmm Just trying to stay awake.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So let's jump into our questions. For everyone out there that isn't familiar with your music, how would you describe your sound?
I play punk music, I would say. I guess like the term like punk has got so many connotations that I kind of like I sometimes just like to think of it as like rock and roll music. Sometimes I get called like a singer-songwriter because a lot of the time when I tour, I play like an acoustic guitar if I'm by myself, if I don't have a band with me. So I think people put me into like a singer-songwriter bracket. Um, but yeah, I just consider myself like a punk band. And then sometimes there's other people there and sometimes there's not. But sometimes it's just me. But
Yeah, I saw some stuff on YouTube. You did a tour like a year ago through America, and it was just you with your acoustic.
hmm
I forgot the band you were opening for, and then I saw some other stuff where you played fest and you had a full band. One of our mutual friends, Dave Parker, was playing with you.
Yeah, shout out to Dave Parker. Yeah, he's the best.
That's awesome. So I want to ask, how did you come up with your stage name? Can you tell the story behind that?
Sure. So it's actually quite a famous book in the UK, but mostly like in like an older generation. So when I was like maybe 16, I guess my dad gave me that book, and that book like meant a lot to me as a teenager. And I've been doing this for so long that I like came up with the name when I was a teenager. I actually like it was between this name and like one other name, and I'm really glad that I went with this name because I've been doing it for so long, and I. But band names are kind of stupid. Like most band names are terrible once you like pull them apart and think about them. Like, so I'm quite happy with this one. But
Yeah, when I was googling for you, I saw that it was like something from the '60s, and it was like and so I was like, oh, maybe this is where the name came from, but I didn't want to like just assume that. I wanted to hear like, did you have another reason for it? Like, or you just know to
yeah,
be like a fucking liar, so that's fine.
no, it's a book written in the '60s, and it's about the '50s. And it was also like a film here and a stage play, and yeah, it's funny because in America people often just think I'm named like I took the name from a song by a band called the Decemberists because they've got a song called Billy Liar. So sometimes people come out to me at gigs and they're like, "Oh, you must be a big fan of the Decemberists," and I'm like, "Not really. I don't really know any of their music. I only know them because people come up and they sometimes sing that song to me in bars." But in the UK, it's quite well known. So like people like my parents' generation, if I play with like an older punk band, which I often do, people come up to me at the merch stand and kind of want to talk to me about the book, which is, more relatable. I can understand that. I can talk to them about that, so that's nice.
Yeah, it's like how in the UK, around Christmas and New Year's, you guys have that dinner for one thing that's really well known.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just like I watched that and I was like, I get it why this is supposed to be funny, but I don't really think it's funny. It's such a different sense of humor.
Yeah, it's not like a national tradition here. It's like known, but it's like in Germany they watch it like every single year. But like here it was just on TV. Like it's not such a like a once a year thing. But I really like it. It's really funny. But yeah, it's like a totally different sense of humor to the
Yeah,
American.
it's like slapstick comedy where it's just very like in your face type of comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was actually reading about you. I read that you're vegan. How long have you been vegan, and what made you want to do that?
I've been vegan for about coming up for 3 years now. So not too long. I guess I always kind of thought about it. Like when I was a child, I always had this idea in my head, like that eating meat was kind of weird for some reason. I guess because like, everyone has, or not everyone has, but lots of people have pets, and I couldn't really disassociate pets with like cows or sheep. So like if we went to like a farm, like there's a small community farm in Edinburgh, and we'd go there on school trips, and I'd like feed the goats or whatever, and like pat the head of a cow, and then to then go and like eat like a burger at McDonald's or something just didn't seem right. But it took me a long time actually like make the decision. I watched I watched a lot of documentaries when I was younger, but still eating meat, so I was still sort of a contradiction. But there was one time where I was actually living in Germany for a while, and I flew back after a series of tours to the UK, and I kind of made I made a decision because I watched these two documentaries back to back on a flight, and I thought I can't really do this anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how long have you been vegan?
Same, about 3 years.
Okay. What made you?
When did I went vegan after reading this book from a nutritionist. Like I had been following her blog for like a year. She's a nutritionist here in LA, and I actually found her when reading Dita Von Teese, her book, because she talked about, oh, this nutritionist is amazing. She changed my life. And it was a time when I was just feeling really unhealthy. So I gave it a try. And like when I read her book, it talked about, like, it was like sneaky vegan. Like it wasn't a book about being vegan, but it was just like about how clogging your body up with all of these toxins and like things that are very hard for your body to digest.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, she's just like, you shouldn't do it. And like, I started by phasing out meat, and I like instantly my energy levels skyrocketed, and I was just like, I just don't want it anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like it really changed my energy levels as well. I
Yeah.
didn't really, I just grew up eating meat and cheese, so and I thought that I really enjoyed them. But then once I cut them out, I was like, I don't need these things at all. And it would be difficult to find things to cook all the time because I kind of, I just would eat like, vegetable, like veggie burgers or whatever. And I thought like, what else do you eat? But it just turns out that you eat everything apart from meat and cheese. Like I don't need that in my life. So,
Yeah.
but I don't judge anyone who does that, because I did that for my entire life until 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it is weird, and it's, it's getting easier. Like places are becoming more vegan friendly.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask for you, like, how is it in Scotland with that? And then how is it for you when you're touring? Do you have a hard time with it? Because when I travel, depending on where I go, it's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. It's definitely getting a lot better in places that I'm traveling to, and in Scotland as well. I will say, like the first time I toured in America, I wasn't vegan at that point, but I was trying to like get towards vegetarianism, I suppose. It was in my head. And also I wasn't used to like American food, which definitely like makes my body, a bit confused just because it's so much like bigger and like the portions are so much bigger. So I was just sometimes would just be trying to find like a salad. Just like I don't know where I can find like a fucking salad. You're at like a truck stop and you've got like an 8 or 9 hour drive or something, and you're just like, how do I get like a piece of fruit? Like it's just sometimes really hard. But that's the same in the UK. It's it's unfair of me to say that it's just America, but it's because I was doing such like large distances in America, whereas like in the UK, if you're traveling from one town to another, it might be like 2 or 3 hours. So you're going to arrive somewhere and then you can go to a shop and you can find something to eat. Whereas in America, you're just at gas stations. So what the fuck are you going to find at a gas station apart from like fast food or, I don't know, whatever.
Oh, I know. I did one tour last year, and it was America, and it was like pretty broad distances. And
Nice.
yeah, it was a lot of gas stations. So there were literally like, the way that I managed was I was like, hey guys, we got to stop at a grocery store, and I'm just going to stock up. And then like,
That's the way.
it is a very real thing. Like you hear artists say that a lot, that there's literally nothing but gas stations, and it is true.
Yeah.
It is true, and it is awful. Oh my God. So I wanted to ask, you being from Scotland, people have their ideas about, Scottish language and Scottish slang. Most most famous person from Scotland is Waddy from The Exploited, and he's very.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you share some Scottish slang with us that like maybe would be foreign to people that've never been there? I've never been to your country.
Have you not?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should come. Yeah, like I'm from Edinburgh originally. I live in Dundee now, but I'm from Edinburgh, and that's where The Exploited are from as well. So I kind of grew up like like loving that band. I still do love that band, and seeing the band around at gigs, and I'm good friends with some of them. But
But
I was
the Cundies are from Dundee, right? I interviewed them over the summer.
I always find it funny when like Watty's in like a punk documentary and he's the only one that has subtitles. Like everyone, like from all different countries are in the documentary and then they subtitle Watty fucking. But I mean, I can understand what he's saying all the time. And you seem to be able to, but I guess some people can't. But
Yeah, when I interviewed him, I just made sure to listen very carefully, and I was like, no, I get it. I hear what he's saying.
yeah, well that's good. He's really funny on Instagram as well. Like I really like his online presence with his little dog and stuff.
And he's fucking hilarious. I love him so much. So
Like,
teach us some Scottish slang. What are
oh
some
yeah,
you guys say?
it's hard not to think of just like really dirty things because that's mostly what people would say, I suppose.
Let's share those. It'll probably be funny.
What one of the like nicer things I like since I moved to Dundee, like there's a lot of people say things in Dundee that they don't even say in Edinburgh. So like in Dundee, instead of saying like see you later, people say see you after. So like if you're like leaving a shop or you're like saying bye to a friend, you'd say like see you after, which I always liked because it sounds like to me I'm always like see you after what like, but now because of we're having this like crazy pandemic, which I didn't want to talk about. Every time everyone says "see you after," I'm always like, "See you after the pandemic." Like, "See you after." It always sounds like a big event, and that makes me feel like I don't know. I kind of like it. It's maybe that's not the answer you were looking for, but
No,
that's
I'm
probably
not looking for any answers. I'm just picking your brain. That is weird though. See you after. I would be confused. Like when I first started coming to England, and people would be like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like, and I just because like in America, when somebody asks you like, "Are you all right?" It means
yeah,
like, "Are you okay?"
yeah, yeah. Yeah, not really an answer to that question. It's like a rhetorical question. Like,
Yeah, it's like their way of like saying like, "How are you?" instead
yeah,
of like, "Are you okay?"
it gets like shortened just to the word all right as well. So often people just be like, all right. And you don't say anything. You just go like, all right, back. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like when I was at high school, you just walk past people, like instead of saying hi, you just be like, all right. Like that was just like the cool way of saying like, hey, But
Yeah.
yeah, that can sound, it is a question, but it's a question with no answer. If you start going like, oh, I'm quite tired and I feel all right, but people don't really know why you're answering the question.
Yeah, when I first started coming there, that's how I would answer it.
Well, that's
They just looked at me like I was nuts.
nice. It means they'll like learn things about you they wouldn't have known, and yeah, it's their fault, not yours.
Cultural differences. Cultural differences. So reading about you, I saw a few times you have a phrase: "Great things come to those who go out on the road and make a hell of a lot of their own mistakes." Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, I just said that because I was trying to sum up the fact that I guess like I've been like an independent musician for a long time, so I've been kind of like running my own career, if you want to call it that. Like I'm like you. I guess I'm kind of like an independent artist, so I'm kind of booking a lot of my own tours and traveling a lot and setting things up and making things happen. But most of the time I've up until fairly recently been doing pretty much all of that stuff by myself. So that means like I've done a lot of things that I'm really happy with and I'm really proud of. But there's also situations which have been quite hairy. But I'm glad that I had those situations happen because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Do you know?
Yeah, like what kind of situations that were hairy?
Oh. But I mean, some of the bigger ones, I suppose. Like the first time I toured in America, I toured in America. A friend of mine booked the entire tour, so I had just under a month of gigs, and I'd never played in America before. And for the whole tour, my friend Jason was going to be driving, so he took like a month off work, and we hired a rental car. I can't drive. This is part of the problem. So he was driving the whole time, and I was playing shows every night. The deal, and we were gonna have a fun time, but the shows were all booked, and it was booked around Fest, so it was basically 2 weeks down from New York to Gainesville, Florida, and then 2 weeks back from Gainesville, Florida to New York. So I was flying in and out of New York, and for the first 2 weeks that was fine. Some of the shows were better than others, obviously, as touring goes. Some of them were great, and some of them were a bit, less good. But it wasn't until we got to Fest that Jason got a phone call and realized that he had to unexpectedly go back to work. There'd been some sort of emergency at his work. So for the next 2 weeks, I just figured, well, I'll have to do the shows. Like, either I give up now, I get in the hire car with Jason and I go back to New York, and then I sit around in New York for 2 weeks before I fly home, or I've got all these gigs booked. I just have to get out there and play them. But I can't
Yeah.
drive, and I don't have a vehicle, but I've got this bag full of merch and I've got a guitar. So I just figured I could get like buses and trains, like megabuses or like Greyhounds.
Yeah.
But then I found out, firstly, that the train system really sucks in America, and like it's very expensive and very bad. And secondly, are pretty fucking sketchy situations to be on. But also they don't they don't travel from loads of the places I was going to. Like they don't even have Greyhounds. So a lot of the time, like there was one time I think I took a Greyhound once, and I went all the way to the Greyhound stop. This is like maybe like a week in, and they said you can't come on with all that luggage, so I had to throw out a load of my stuff, like my own clothes. I was like, I can't throw out merch because I can make money out of that. So I just had to bin loads of my clothes. Not that I had that much, but like basically all my possessions I put in the bin, and then I just had my guitar and my t-shirts to sell, and then and it also meant like, yeah, a lot of the time I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even get a bus. So I would just play a show, and like 3/4 of the way through my set, I would be like, so thanks very much for coming to the gig. Just so you know, I'm here from Scotland and I'm playing in such and such a town tomorrow. If anyone has a free day tomorrow, I can pay the gas money and I'll get you some beers at the next show, but I need to get to the next town. And for 2 weeks it worked. Like I took one Greyhound and I think I took one train. So for the rest of the 2 weeks, I was just every night getting on stage and being like, I don't know. And it was, you know, stressful. Like it was really like stressful at times because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But also like I learned so many lessons and I made so many friends, and it gave me much thicker skin. So
Yeah, that really sucks that you had to throw your shit away, and then like you ended up being able to kind of hitch rides with the patrons that came to your shows.
yeah, I asked for help sooner, but there we go.
That's crazy. I mean, that's determination right there of like not giving up, you know, because it's you have that fork in the road where it's like you're either going to give up and call it a day, or you're just going to make it work somehow, and it makes you a stronger artist for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like, yeah, like being my own kind of musician and not being in a band has made those things happen for better and for worse at times. But there's always just like something in me that goes like, well, you gotta try it. You know, you gotta, like I often sometimes I'm in a situation where I'm like thousands of miles away from home and like I'm about to miss my flight or something, and I'm like, fuck, I've got to get from this place to this place and I'm not gonna make it and everything's gonna fall apart. And sometimes it does, but I just always think there's always just this little thing inside of me, like, well, you've got to try, you know. So
Yeah, it's you know, never giving up. I can definitely feel that. I've had a lot of moments in since even just starting my shows, and it's just like you go through things and they're so crushing, and then sometimes you just got to take a sit and then regroup and then
like,
cry it out a little bit.
yeah, you have to.
Have a good cry, and then it's like, okay, what are we gonna do now?
Don't give up. Never give up.
That's awesome. So let's talk about you co-wrote and co-directed and starred in a play that made it to the Eden. I can't say that word. That word is hard for me to say.
Edinburgh. We say Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. God, that is
Yeah.
hard for my mouth to formulate that.
Yeah, but a lot of people say like Edinburgh. A lot of people like Edinburgh is like the European way of saying it, I guess. And then like some people say, yeah, I mean, say whatever you want. Adina is like the old name for Edinburgh. Some people call it Auld Reekie because of the like smoke that used to be there when all the buildings, when we had like coal fires and stuff, and there was so much smoke in the city that it was called like Auld Reekie, which means like old smoky.
Auld Reekie? That sounds easier for me to say. Well, anyway, your play did go into the festival there. Can we talk about that and how that helped you grow as an artist? And like, I mean, that's a big thing to take on, to like star in, direct, and write your own play.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing. I'd I'd done a little bit of acting before, so like tiny. I had a small part in a film before, and like I'd done a bit of extra work, but I'd never written anything like that before. I've done a lot of touring with a friend of mine who's called Freddie Fudpucker, and he's from New Zealand, but he lives in Berlin, and I actually moved to Berlin for a while because he was living there. But at the time, yeah, at the time I was living there. So at the time I was living there, it was one summer, and we basically would just we toured together a lot. So when we toured, we realized that we both have kind of similar ideas, like similar brains, I suppose. So we both thought each other were funny, even when no one else thought we were funny. So I guess that made us think, well, maybe we can do something that only we find funny a lot on stage. Like why the fuck not? So we kind of like yeah had this weird idea, and we got together like once a day over like a period of a few weeks, and like both sat there with laptops. It was kind of inspired by like, or I was certainly inspired by like the Clash, because when like Mick Jones and Joe Strummer used to write songs for London Calling, allegedly they would sit there with like two typewriters and they would both like type out lyrics, and then they would write out a song, and then they would compare notes and then kind of put them together, and that was what allegedly made the songs. So for us, we kind of sat there with two typewriters across from each other, and both like wrote a scene, and then we'd compare the notes, and actually every time they seemed to work together, so we just kind of smooshed them together and then made this play out of it. And the only reason that we like directed and starred in it was because there was no one else was going to want to be involved in like putting on a play at the Edinburgh Festival. So the Edinburgh Festival like used to be a thing which was like a festival for the people, and it was like a socialist sort of thing, and like kind of yeah, like quite an inspiring thing. And to be honest, the festival is huge, and it happens every August, and it takes over the whole of Edinburgh for the whole like month of August. And there's like bars and parties until 5 in the morning every night, and it's like quite different because in the UK lots of bars shut quite early. So like most bars in Edinburgh shut at like 12 or 1, and if you're lucky, 3. So during the festival they shut at 5 instead of 3. So there's like a lot more parties and a lot more nonsense. But there's like a thing called the Free Fringe, like the PBH Free Fringe, which happens every August at the same time as the big festival, and it's like back to basics. So it's kind of like a festival for the people. So that's what we had our show in. So it basically means that anyone, if we put a show on by ourselves as part of the Edinburgh Festival, we would have had to pay like thousands and thousands of pounds, even just to get in the brochure. So we kind of thought like, fuck that, that's bullshit. Instead of that, we'll do this like, we'll take part in the Fringe, but it's like the Free Fringe, which happens at the same time. So we performed, yeah, like every night for a month, at one venue, doing the same show, with no budget, so like no promotion. Like all we did was we got up every morning, we went out into town and we flyered. We printed our own flyers and we flyered like in costume, and then we busked on the streets. Like we played music every day and every night, and then we did the show, and then every night after that we would go and play some weird party somewhere that shake a bucket and try and make some money to get some beers, and then go back to where we were staying, my friend's house, sleep, and then get back up the next morning and do that again for a whole month. Which, yeah, like it was exhausting, but it was also really enriching and rewarding.
So what year was that? What year did that happen?
I think that was like 2017.
Okay.
So not too long ago.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it was weird, but it was fun. There was no music. I think everyone that kind of ever asks about that thinks that I was like playing songs in it or something, but there was no music. It was like an hour-long show with just two characters, but it was like a there was a full narrative. Like it was a play with like, for better or for worse, lots of acting in it.
Well, so what was the play about though? What was like the plot line of it?
Uh, well, I don't know if I should say this, but the reason that we wrote the play the way that we wrote it is because of one of the things I love about punk is the fact that you kind of like do what you can with what you have. you
Yeah.
know? So like you just make it work. So for the play, I was like, I had this idea. I was like, how do we get, how do we have a play with just two people in it? And then I thought, well, the only way to do that is to have two characters who can't leave the space that they're in, because otherwise, if they go, if they go elsewhere, if they go to another scene or something, there's always going to be, there has to be like an interaction, because that's what makes it interesting. And I thought, often you need another character to make it interesting. But then if we put the two characters in a situation that they can't leave, then that basically gets rid of that possibility. So we never need to have another actor. We don't need to, try and beg a friend to take part or pay a professional actor or anything like that. So from that, I had an idea that one time, actually, while we were on tour, me and Freddie, that summer or the summer before, we'd been on tour in Germany, and we played in Hamburg, and we basically parked the car. Like, as I say, I can't drive, so Freddie was driving on the tour, and we parked the car in like an underground car park of quite a fancy hotel, and we'd woken up at a different hotel that we'd stayed at, and we woke up and we were a bit, hungover or whatever, but we went to the fancy hotel, and we got into the lift, and basically there's a whole story there, but the lift broke, and like the lift like went down like several flights of stairs that it shouldn't have done, and then it went up again, and then it got stuck. And then at one point, like the voice I pressed the alarm button, and this voice, like an electronic robotic voice, was like speaking to us in German, and I can't speak any German, and Freddie was like stressed out and didn't really translate what was happening. So I thought that the voice was a robot, but it turns out it was actually a person. And then finally we got out of the lift, and it was all fine. But I just took inspiration from that. I was like, well, why don't we just have the two characters stuck in a lift? So the two characters are stuck in a lift in a hotel, and then obviously we thought it would be funny if the two characters, like for a comedy to work, because it was supposed to be a comedy, like it was a dark comedy, but it was a comedy. For a comedy to work, we kind of need, two characters that are opposing, like So for that, we kind of thought of like the two characters that would be the most opposing. So I was a politician who was about to be disgraced. So to be, there's kind of allegations just about to come out. So basically, the press are outside waiting for him, but he doesn't know this yet, and he's just left a hotel room where he's slept with a sex worker upstairs. So he slept, and then he got into this elevator, and the elevator gets stuck, and the only other person in the elevator was played by Freddie, and he was the bellhop. And as my character gets into the elevator, the bellhop is rubbing speed on his gums. He had like a little bag of speed in his sock, I think, actually. So he like pulls it out of his sock, and I'm like, rubs it on his gums, and then stuffs it under his hat. And he was like wearing a name badge that says Susan on it. So his character was kind of like based on the characters that me and Freddie, we both used to work in like bars and restaurants and like hotels, and we always like fucking hated our jobs, and like didn't work very hard. I remember I used to work at a hotel, and it was like silver service, and sometimes I would just break things on purpose. I shouldn't really admit this, but I thought it was funny sometimes. Like if you're like walking past someone and you're supposed to be offering them like canapes, but you just like, I would just sometimes like drop the plate on purpose just because I thought it was funny. Because then if someone yells at you for it, you just say like, "Oh, I didn't mean to," But I would get like a laugh out of the bad situation. So anyway, so Freddie's character was like based on this. So he was like a guy who hated his job, and he had the wrong name tag on. Because I used to sometimes, when I worked at different hotels, swap name tags with people, especially people from the other or another gender. So his name tag said Susan on it, because I would often do that because I thought it was funny. And then if someone said, "Why are you wearing that name tag?" You'd be like, "Oh, sorry, it's a mistake." I don't mind looking stupid in front of stupid people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that like, that's one thing you said, that's like a difference between America and Europe, of like, in America we have a tipping culture, so if you work at a fancy hotel, you're gonna make a fuck ton of money.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and it's like for you guys, because you work at a fancy hotel, you maybe just have to deal with a bunch of snobby people, and you're not making any more money. Whereas here in America, you're gonna get some fat ass tips if you're nice to those customers.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, like our tipping culture is basically, it's like redundant. So, if you work in a restaurant and you're like serving a table, then you might get tips or whatever. But at this, actually, to be honest, yeah, if you're just walking around the place like serving people canopies, no one's gonna tip you anything. And if you're working on a bar at an event like that, you're not gonna be getting any tips or anything. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by these comments, but I probably shouldn't read them because then I'll.
I always say I can never see the comments because I'm
Oh.
sitting too far away. Like I don't have really good far away vision.
It seems like they're just saying stuff. Someone's just said something about running over a badger.
I think maybe sometimes the viewers have conversations with each other, which I think is funny.
Well, that's fine. We can leave them to it.
We'll be collaborative here in a bit. But yeah, that's weird. That is weird stuff, working at such a fancy hotel. I can imagine that. It sounds like it would be a play, you know, just like Europeans in a fancy hotel and the things that you.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I come over, I'm used to tipping because it's my culture. But then,
Sure.
like, the service people will be really terrible. Like, I'm like, this is not good service, and I don't even want to tip you. And the fact that I don't have to, I'm not fucking going to, because the service is horrible and you've been rude to me. Like, y'all need to learn that culture over there, and people start tipping. It's like it's like a mutually beneficial thing. Better service, I give you money.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because, like, it took me a while to kind of to understand the cultural differences. I was actually like, yeah, I've worked in a lot of bars in my life, like, and I always think about the kind of cultural differences because I'm lucky to have toured in America a lot, so I understand, you know, I see the differences, but I think that a lot of bartenders in the UK or waiters in the UK or whatever don't know. They just don't know I don't know, you know. I don't know.
It's like, hook it up, give me better service. Like, every time I come over there, it's like, my drink is a vodka soda, and I'll get that. And first of all, a lot of times they're confused because it's not a common drink there. But if I'm lucky, there'll be like 2 ice cubes in it.
Yeah. Well, that's Dave Parker's drink as well, a vodka soda with fresh lime, but lots of fresh lime. Yeah, and he's always like complaining about the lack of ice.
No ice, no straws. A lot of times, no lime, and I'm just like, is this a bar?
Bum pops call ice like European diamonds when they're in Europe because it's like so hard to get hold of. Like it's fucking impossible to find. And again, like I never even thought about it like that. Like you just grow up in the UK with like 2 ice cubes in a glass, and you just, as I say, like I worked in loads of bars and restaurants, and you just put 2 ice cubes in a glass and then you serve it to someone. And when the first time I went to America, I was like, why is everything so cold? Like the beer's so cold, the drinks are so cold. But it's because it's so hot and it's so nice. Like everything's so refreshing.
Yeah,
like,
it's cold. Like, you know, one of the biggest difference is probably like America. You know, I don't like to call it hedonistic. We just like comfort, and it seems like everybody in Europe is just like used to being uncomfortable, like mildly to severely uncomfortable. And it's like, why would you do that to yourself?
I mean, I don't want to get too deep, but I think it's potentially slightly masochistic. Like I think people. There's like such a weird like hatred of like, you know, everyone's kind of brought up sort of hating themselves. So they're like, they don't want like a nice drink. They want like a horrible drink. You know,
Well, like, even like hotels, you go to a hotel and there'll be like 1 pillow, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that's just bad. It's just bad. It's just like I can't make excuses for that. That's just shit.
It's getting better. It's getting better. But like the ice cube thing, like. Every year when I come over for Rebellion, I always take a picture of it. And it's like, because it's so freaking hot, because it's August and there's no air conditioning, it's like literally by the time I finally do get my drink, that like 1 or 2 ice cubes is literally already melted. And I'm just like drinking like this hot, like vodka with soda water and like no lime.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I will say though, like, you've been to other places in the UK apart from Blackpool, right?
Yeah, I've been to London. And I've been to Ireland, but I was in Ireland when I was a kid, so I wasn't drinking.
Okay, just like London is like nowhere else in the UK, kind of like New York in America, and Blackpool also is kind of like pretty much nowhere else. You know, Blackpool is so like I love it, but it's really like it's a trip. Like it's especially like a lot of the hotels and B&Bs in Blackpool are pretty.
After the first year staying at one of those fucking shithole hotels that was across the street from the backstage entrance, I was like, absolutely not.
Oh man, those.
And now I book Airbnbs because like I'm there for work and I need a space to get myself ready, and I'm just like, I cannot with these fucking shithole hotels with how hard I'm working.
Like they've got these funny little staircases. Like I think last year I stayed at one where the door handle came off in my hand as soon as I came in, and I couldn't get back. TV didn't work, and like the shower was fucked. And one year I thought it'd be funny because I was playing there every year. I just thought for a change I would try and find the worst one I could find. So I like looked up all the reviews on like TripAdvisor and Yelp, and I found like the funniest review where it said like the owner had like gone out drinking with them, like the people who'd stayed there, and he then ended up like lending them money. And he was like a massive alcoholic and like quite a character, and he ended up giving them a goat, like an actual goat. So I thought I was like I had to stay there. So I stayed there and I met him, but he didn't lend me any money, and I didn't get a goat. But it was a shit hotel.
Which one was that one?
Oh fuck knows. That was like 5 years ago. I can't remember. I could find out and tell you. But.
I just remember my first one. I stayed at the one. It's just right across from it, and it was like the shower stall was so small. And when my spikes are up, I don't wash my hair for the weekend.
Sure.
Because it's just easier to fix it every day.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't fit into the shower stall. So for 5 days, I had to take sink showers and like shave my leg like the sink. It was so awful. I was like, fuck this.
Is that the one with the bar? Is that the one with like the bar that's open pretty much all night and people just
no,
like?
No, it's next to that one. It was next to it. I don't know. It was terrible though. So now I always book an Airbnb and it's much more comfortable.
That sounds sensible. I don't know why I've never thought of that.
You know what? I just save and spend the money. It is a little bit more expensive to be honest, but it's fucking worth it. It's so worth it. It's like I got a year to save up.
Yeah. That sounds sensible.
So anyway, back to our questions. So I saw on your website you have a section called Liar Writes, where it's like you kind of talk to bands too. Can you talk more about that?
Oh, to be honest, I haven't done that for a little while. But I just like I love you know, I love reading interviews. I love watching interviews. I've watched a lot of yours, and they're great. And yeah, I just find like people talking about music really interesting. I listen to podcasts all the time, and yeah, I did those a while ago. I think there's one with Deke, my friend from Micklow, and there's one with TV Smith, and there's one with Franz Nicolai. I think that's it. I have done a few more things that aren't up there like that, but as I say, I haven't done it for a while. I should get back into it, but.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that. I saw that some of them were older, and I was wondering if, like, during this quarantine, you might have considered, you know, doing some more.
Yeah, maybe I should do. I have been thinking about doing like organizing something, I guess, but it feels like everyone's doing so much, and a lot of it's really good, and I just feel like maybe I don't need to. Like, maybe I can just take part in things and do a little bit of music, but you know, I don't really want, you know, there's so much of it that maybe I don't need to. I don't know.
I don't think of it like that. I mean, I think it's like there's space for everybody, you know, and it's not like a competition because people get bored and they want stuff to watch, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff. Like, I watch a lot of things that people are doing. So, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should.
Well, yeah, I think it's like, you know, I miss a lot of stuff because I'm busy, like, creating the stuff. And so it's like if you're watching, then that's great because, you know, everyone's creating. But then if you're doing, you won't be watching.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's not enough time. We need more time. We've got all.
I know. I'm like, I keep seeing these memes, and it's all like, oh, you know, there's too many hours in the day, and I'm finally reaching the point in this quarantine where I'm like, oh my god, there's not enough hours in the day. I'm overloaded.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that. Like, I feel like for quite a while there, I wasn't doing enough stuff, so it felt like time was just flying by. But now I feel like I'm trying to do as much stuff as possible in a positive way, but it also means I don't have enough time. But at least time is like going at a steady pace. It's not like, it doesn't feel like it's, I don't know what day it is most of the time, but at least it's not like super fast. That feels
Yeah.
good. Feels
I
slightly.
still keep losing track of the time though. Like I have to keep checking my phone and I'm like, what day is it? What month is it?
Yeah,
Like I'm like, oh, it's still May. Okay, cool. It's still May.
yeah. I still keep like a physical diary, and if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't know. I literally wouldn't know what day it was or where I was. But you know, I've got this written in my diary, so I'm here, so I made it. So that's
That's
good.
so cool. You have a diary. I feel that's like a really healthy thing to do, like journaling.
Yeah, I feel like I have to. Like, I noticed actually on your Instagram that you posted about having like to-do lists, and I do that too. Like, I every day I write a list, and then I try and score off as much as I can. But there's always bits left, and then the next day I just add them on to the next day. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't do anything. So it's really
So
important.
how have you been filling out your days in this quarantine, and like what does some of your to-do lists look like?
Well, you know, I've been doing some of these online gigs. I've been posting merch that people are ordering, which is nice that they're still, you know, carrying on ordering things. Yeah, and I'm trying to write another record as well. But I'm also trying not to write a record about quarantine. So it's a weird situation to be in where I've got a lot to write about because it's a fucking weird thing. But also I'm trying not to write about this particular thing.
Because
But then
literally everybody is writing about it. Literally everybody.
exactly. So either I just be part of that and that would be fine, or I'm just trying to write. I'm just trying to write something else. But then I end up writing quite a lot of songs about like isolation anyway. So even if I wrote songs about like my own life, I'd probably end up writing songs that sounded like they were about the quarantine. So it's a lose-lose situation, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your songs are kind of sad and moody. Like, I was listening to your album yesterday and then again today, and there's
Oh,
that one song, and I'm like, I just have to skip it. It's too fucking sad for the state of the times right now. The one, Independent People, it's just too goddamn sad right now.
oh yeah. Well, that's to have like a positive feeling underneath it, I suppose. But I know what you mean. It's definitely, especially when I play it live. The funny thing with that is I actually have a video for that. Like we shot a video, and it was pre-quarantine. It was before any of this had happened. It was like in February or January, and it's a really beautiful video. I didn't make it, so I can say that. I just happened to be in it. My friend Gareth made it, but it's we shot it in Glasgow, and I'm playing, but like I didn't want it to look like I was just playing music on the streets. So like I like go over, he used a drone, so I'm like going over a bridge and there's drone shots, and I'm playing like in a weird tunnel, and it's all black and white and it's very like dark and moody and stuff. But to be honest, it looks like a quarantine video, and it looks like a quarantine song because it's this fucking sad. It's not supposed to be totally sad, but there's definitely like the sad parts in the song, and
Yeah.
it's a song about yeah, about the British government in particular. But that combined with this like black and white moody video of me in the streets by myself just really looks like we shot like a quarantine video. So it's been kind of on hold now, and we ended up shooting another video after that, which came out which came out faster, and I kind of wish we just put that one out before, because then it would be already out there and it'd be fine. But now it's hanging around, and yeah, I don't know when to put it out now.
Aww. Well, I want to see the video. I think it sounds really cool. All of your stuff is kind of moody, but we're about halfway through our questions, so I wanted to ask, will you play us some music?
I can do. Yes, sure. Hold on.
Yay! Entertain us.
All right. Hold on. Is this like a good angle? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, we can see you. We see you. You're lit. We get the vibe that you've got a guitar.
That's all we need, right? All right. I'll play. This song's called "The Righteous and the Rats." It's on my record, Some Legacy. It's on Spotify. Shit. or at least I'd seen him around. He said, do you know any songs we all can sing? Do you know any songs that kind of mean something? Do you know any protest songs? Kind of we can sing along. He said, listen, lads, I'm wasting no man. You got to make it known what side of the fence you're standing on. When the world began, there were no borders. No one chooses where they're born. Do you know any protest songs? Kind of we can sing along. It's getting harder. It's getting harder to tell the righteous from the rest. We're getting older, but we'll still die trying to tell the righteous from the rest. It's getting harder. It's getting harder to tell the righteous from the rest. Getting older, but we'll still die trying to tell the righteous from the rest. And there's nothing right with that.
Woo! That's pretty.
Thank you.
I like that song. That's one of my favorite songs from your album.
Oh, thanks very much.
So I wanted to ask, like you discussed earlier, you've been a musician for a long time, but last June you finally released your first full-length album. But before that, you had like a string of EPs. Why the long wait on that?
That's a good question. There's probably like a lot of answers for that question. I suppose the main reason is just it took me a long time because it's difficult for me to say. Do you know that? So my friend Joe McMahon, he's the singer in a band called Smoker Fire. We're like a band on Fat Wreck, and he's an amazing songwriter, and I love that band. And me and him started touring together in like 2015, I think, or 2016, and we were on tour together and playing songs every night, and we became really good friends. And like it was while we were on a tour somewhere. As you said, I'd released a lot of EPs at that point, but I just never made an album, and I'd never been in the right situation with the right people to know, like, I never like really understood how to make a record. Like, I know it sounds kind of stupid, but like I'd made EPs, but like every time, because I've never like been on a label before, I was always like, where do I go to record where do I go to, I don't know. So I was recording EPs in different places with different friends or people who worked at studios, but it was never quite people with the same influences as me. And because I wasn't in a band, it was always I was having to make all these decisions by myself. So yeah. I guess that's part of it. And then I was just touring with Joe, and he was hearing my songs every night, and he's one of my best friends, and he's like a brother to me. Like, he's a hugely important person in my life, mentor, and also, really close friend. And we played a bar in Germany somewhere. We played a venue in Germany somewhere. We ended up back at a bar, and everyone smokes in the bars in Germany. So you come out stinking of cigarettes, which doesn't really happen. It used to happen in the UK, but it doesn't happen now. Anyway, we were in this bar, and like everyone plays foosball, like table football. So we played like table football with these German punks, and we got the DJ to play some punk songs, and we were at the bar and drinking and whatever. And Joe was like, "Why have you never made a record? Like, why have you never made a record?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just haven't. I've never done it." And he was like, "You need to make a record, man. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, are you scared? Like, what the fuck? What are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I just don't know how to. He's like, we're going to make a record. You know, like, we're going to make it happen. And so he'd kind of like planted this seed in my head that maybe at some point we could make a record. And then we toured in Ireland. And while we were in Ireland, at one point, he was like getting the mixes back for his own solo record. He put out a solo record called Another Life a few years ago. And he was getting the mixes back at that point. And he let me hear them like on the headphones. I was like, what are you listening to? And he said, oh, you know, it's mixes for my record. Do you want to hear it? And I listened to it and I was like, fuck, this is like, you know, this sounds, I don't want to sound, what's the word? Insincere. You know, I don't want to sound too like, but what I'm trying to say is it sounded amazing. It sounded like one of the best records I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, holy shit, this is your record? Like, where did you record this? And he said, oh, it's, you know, I recorded it with my friend in Belgium. And he said, we should make your record there. And then, so that was like the second seed. So that there was like these two ideas. So there was Joe, you know, said, let's make a record. And then we had the studio idea. And then at one point we played in London. This is all different tours. At one point we played in London. And my friend Robin Guy, who's an incredible drummer, he's one of the best drummers in the world, but he's just always been a friend of mine. You've probably seen him at Rebellion. He plays in Sham 69 now. He's like the young guy. He's been in lots of bands. He's been in The Business. He's been in Rachel Stamp, The Grit, a ton of bands. The Fiascos. Anyway, we've been friends for over 10 years, and he recorded on, he played drums on an EP I recorded 10 years ago called It Starts Here. And so I knew him from there. And every time I played in London, he'd come along and like play drums if he could. Like no matter what, he'd be like, fucking, you got to fucking play, I'll hit it. You know, like if there's a drum kit there, I'll play that. If there's the, so it's the same at Rebellion. Like he'd always be like, let's do something together. So we'd always be trying to make something work. And everywhere in London. So it was this one time me and Joe played in, it's called the Windmill in Brixton in London. And it's this crazy pub with like a dog that lives on the roof called Roof Dog. Which sounds untrue, but it is true. And we played there and it was Joe's birthday. And at that show, Robin came along and there was a drum kit there on the stage, or he like cobbled together a drum kit out of like old bits in a cupboard. So he like pulled this drum kit together on stage, and me and him hadn't played together for like a few years at that point. And he just said like, what do you want to play? And I said, why don't you play most of the set with me? And he was like, okay, what are you going to play? And I said, well, there's these songs and there's these. So he like put his headphones in and he was like, right, okay, listen to them. And then was like, right, let's do it. So we played, yeah, like, I don't know, 10 songs together that night. And afterwards, me and Joe went and stayed at Robin's house, because Robin's an old friend of mine. And we were back at Robin's house when we had some drinks and had a bit of a party. Robin's got a hot tub in his back garden. So, like, there's always sort of, like, funny situations. And obviously, it was Joe's birthday. It was a nice time. But the next day, Joe was like, why have you never, you've got, like, this incredible drummer. Like, why is this guy not playing drums on your record? And I was like, I don't know. And he said, I think he'd play drums on your record if he wanted to. I said, would he? And Joe was like, yeah, of course he would. Like, how long have you been friends with this guy who plays in Sham 69? He played with Faith No More on Top of the Pops. Like, he's an incredible, he used to play for Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. He's a pro, like, session drummer, like, but also a fucking punk rocker and an incredible guy. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, just ask him. A message like the next day. I was like, I'm looking to record a record. Like after we left his house and like had, you know, some cups of tea or whatever, and said like, are you, you know, would you play on my record? And he was like, of course I would. So then I started, you know, it took a while, and then finally we got together and we made a record. And I went to Belgium for a week with Joe, and my friend Tim Van Duren runs a studio out in Belgium called Big Dog Recordings, and we made it there. So I was there for a week or six days, and then I came back for a friend's wedding on the last day. To Scotland, and Robin was just there for a day and a half, and he recorded all the songs in one day, and then one song on the last day. On the second day.
Yeah.
So yeah, Robin's like a machine. Like we arrived on the day, set up for the studio, went out drinking, got up the next day, recorded the whole record, went out drinking, and then the next morning he came in, recorded the last song, and then he was gone, back on a Eurostar, back to London. Because he's always so busy with everything.
Yeah. it's just kind of funny to me how your record just kind of like all of these things that are like kind of obvious, and then you're just like, oh, I don't know why I never did that, but it's really funny. I mean, it's a great record, so you clearly like kind of took your time letting it happen. But it's funny because it's like, oh, why don't you make a record? And you're like, I don't know. Why don't you use this drummer that's amazing drummer that's your friend? I don't know. It's really funny. It's a funny story.
Yeah. Like, yeah, Joe just kind of asked all the right questions, and no one had really asked me those questions before. I guess I just sort of like blundered through my life at that point. And
well, I think that's normal too. I mean, I can relate to that for sure. Like, there's been projects where I think it's just like maybe sometimes your own insecurities of like what seems obvious to other people. You're just like, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Like Joe said, like Robin would play drums on your record. Like Robin wants to play drums with you. I was like, no, he doesn't. Does he? You know, and he's like, why do you think he comes and plays drums with you every time you play in London? Why? Well, you know, he's one of your best friends, and he's an incredible drummer. And I was like, yeah, but he wouldn't want to play drums with me. He wouldn't come to Belgium, would he? And then I asked Robin. Robin was like, fuck yeah, I'd come to Belgium. And I was like, oh, wait, and Joe, you're going to produce my record? Oh, okay. I don't know. I guess lack of confidence or something, but who knows? Not sure.
Maybe, but you did it. And the record's great. Everyone go stream it. It's on Spotify, and then where else can people get it?
Yeah, so it's on Spotify. I've recently set up a US web store through Stupid Rad merch. So if you go to, I've got all this written backwards. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see this? Is this legible? Yeah.
For a minute there, and I was like, I forgot to put my Do Not Disturb on.
Oh, right. Yeah, can you?
Yes, I can see that now.
All right. So
let me pin your donations for the rest of it. What the fuck does that say?
Bria@gmail.com. So my partner's name is Bria, which is like a Scottish name.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, it means beautiful actually in Scottish.
Aww.
Gaelic.
So, and that's PayPal?
Yes. No. Yeah. Sorry, it's a PayPal. Yeah.
Bria.
So it's Bria BREAGHAB @gmail.com. But you can buy that's just for donations. But you can, if anyone wants to help out. I had a lot of cancelled tours.
Yes.
I know a lot of the same boat. But you can buy my record directly from Red Scare, which is the label that I'm on. Or you can also buy it through Stupid Rad merch if you're in America, and I've got a whole bunch of merch up there. You can also buy it directly from me if you're in the UK or Europe for my Bandcamp. I've got a bunch of merch up there as well. But Stupid Rad are doing a bunch of bundles, which are stopping soon, of like hoodies and enamel pins and stuff, which I've never done before. So it's fucking cool stuff.
That is awesome. Okay, I hope I spelled this right. Bria, GHAB?
BREAGHAB. Yeah.
Okay, PayPal. I'm pinning the comment right now. Sorry, I'm like so close to the screen. I'm like trying to pin this comment. Okay. Let me pin. Wait. Ah!
That's it.
Let me pin it. Hold on.
Thanks. I should have told you this beforehand, I guess.
It's okay. Everybody go give him money. Because like he said, musicians right now, all their tours have been canceled. It's just been an interesting time of trying to figure out how to make money in this, you know?
Yes.
Oh, God. So we'll jump back into our questions. You kind of touched on how you made the album and the story of that, but what are some of your musical influences?
Well, you know, I grew up listening to punk bands. I grew up listening to like a lot of the original like UK punk bands, and a lot of the American punk bands as well. I suppose my favorite ones have always been like the lyrics are really important to me. The music's really important, but the lyrics are also like equally, if not more important sometimes. So I know that's not the same for everybody. But like the Clash were really important to me, and still are. And the Adverts, who are like another London-based punk band, they made my favorite punk record of all time, Crossing the Red Sea with the Adverts. And the singer from that band, T.D. Smith, he still like tours as a solo act. And we've played together a lot over over, you know, since I started. Like I've been friends with him since I was 18, and we've been playing gigs with him since then. And only in the last few years have I ended up like playing songs with him at his gigs as well. And
Yeah, I saw him at Rebellion this year. He does a lot of high kicks.
he does, yeah, he does. He's impressive, yeah. He's
That
one
was
of my.
one thing I noticed when I was like filming some of his set. I was supposed to interview him, and then it didn't. Our schedules didn't end up working out. But I filmed some of his set with his permission, and I was just I kept thinking that I'm like he does a lot of high kicks.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it's impressive. He's a great friend and incredible songwriter. And then so a lot of like UK punk bands, and then a lot of American punk bands, like the newer ones, like No Effects were like a major influence on me. Like I think Fat Mike's an incredible songwriter, and Alkaline Trio were a massive influence on me as well. Like Dan Andriano's like songwriting in particular, but Matt Skiba's songwriting as well. And that band are fucking incredible. And then through that, I kind of I just like listened to everything I possibly could like that, but also like I like a lot of people like Tom Waits, or there's a lot of like Scottish bands. There's a band called Arab Strap who are from Glasgow, and they were a major influence on me because they kind of sing songs in their own accent, and they also sing songs which are like weird and dark, and they kind of not ashamed of being weird and dark, and they'll just say what they want to, you know, they'll sing songs about whatever they want to sing about it. Anyone that does that is kind of an influence on me. But you know, anything kind of influences me. Like I listen to all sorts of music, and whatever I listen to definitely has an effect. I guess I'm like a sponge or something, you know. Like it definitely, I'm kind of influenced by everything. Like if I read a book, I'm like, oh, you know, inspired negatively or positively. But definitely punk was the thing that like got me going. You know, listening to the Exploited like early on was a big thing for me because my dad had like still has like an incredible record collection, and you know he listens to all music as well, and he was a big influence on me growing up. Like he taught me the first guitar chords on the guitar, and but sometimes like on a Saturday morning when I wasn't at school, I'd like go through his record collection. I didn't really know how to work the record player, so I'd be like, Dad, can you put this on? And I must have been like, I don't know how old, like 10 or something. And I said, Dad, can you put this on? And I found this, yeah, he had all sorts of music in there. So I'd listen to all sorts of things. And one time I found like a 7-inch single that was The Exploited. And it was Army Life by The Exploited. And I looked at the cover and it's like a cartoon, like old comics that I used to read. And on the back, it's got like The Exploited all like pissing against a wall. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And then I looked at the bottom of the record and it said it was recorded in Edinburgh. And I was like, fuck, these guys are from Edinburgh. So I was like, Dad, can I listen to this? And he was like, oh, don't put that on. And I was like, what? He's like, don't put that on. And but of course he put it on. And I loved it. Like the minute I heard it, I was like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life. And I still think that, you know, Army Life and Punk's Not Dead, and Trips to Tomorrow, and I love all the Exploited records. But that hearing that record, it sounded so cheap, but so like exciting at the same time. And I kind of had that about a lot of punk, like The Clash and The Damned, and of course like the Sex Pistols and the Adverts and all those bands like X-Ray Specs and like yeah, I just found them so exciting. Like they just made me want to fucking break stuff and like jump around like an idiot. And
oh, I know. I have that lately. It's like you know, in this quarantine, sometimes I can't listen to punk because it just makes me want to just get fucked up all the time.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
it's like I have like my two moods: female rappers for when it's time to fucking work and make the money, and then punk rock for when it's time to fuck shit up and get wasted.
That makes sense.
Sometimes I can't listen to punk and like be productive because I'm like, I just want to fucking get lit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of it is kind of like break stuff music. And yeah, I know what you mean. I guess I listen to kind of like hardcore punk when I'm trying to do more productive stuff. Does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, it's music for the mood that you're in. Music for moods.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, like my dog and I went on a walk, and that's when I was listening to your album. It was fitting for the mood of like, okay, the sun is setting, we're coming down a little bit, you know, and like it's like we're just chilling.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So, um, so like you touched on earlier, you joined the Stupid Rad family for your merch supplier for America.
Yeah.
Can you talk about kind of how that happened? Like I also saw, you know, Red Scare Industries put out your album, which is kind of like what Red Scare has bands like they did Masked Intruder, and the owner of Red Scare was a former employee of Fat Records, which is why there is kind of a lot of that crossover.
That's right. Yeah, Toby runs Red Scare. Shout out to Toby if he's here. Yeah, he's put out a lot of incredible bands, and he's an incredible guy. And yeah, I'm lucky to have him as a friend now. But we didn't know each other before we ended up, you know, kind of working together. So I'm lucky to be doing that. The reason that happened was just because my record was there, and I didn't know who was going to put the record out, but I knew I didn't want to just self-release it because I'd self-released pretty much everything I'd ever done at that point. So I knew that I was really proud of the record and I was really happy with it. And like you say, it took me fucking over 10 years to make it an actuality. So I didn't want to just like, you know, people talk about dropping the record. I didn't want to actually drop the record. I didn't want to be like, oh, I've got this thing that I've taken over 10 years to make and, you know, most of my adult life. And then just be like, oh, I fucking smashed it to bits. You know, I really like wanted to make sure it was like out in the world and people could hear it, you know. And Red Scare is like, yeah, it's one of the best labels in the world. I think like I love all the bands on it, like and yeah, like there's a lot of like the Holy Mess were like I was big fans of them, and Nothington and the Lawrence Arms and the Bum Pops and yeah, Ramona are on it now, and Sincere Engineer, and my friend Sam Russo from England, and good friend. I mean, I could list all the bands on Red Scare forever, but yeah, it was just that I had the record and I didn't know who was going to put it out, and it was when I was on tour with the Bum Pops actually, and the Bum Pops were kind of like they saw me play live. We played together before. We played together in Switzerland, but it wasn't until we played together in where was it? Somewhere in England. Or maybe it was somewhere in Scotland. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But they saw me play, and then they'd seen me play before, but they saw me play the second time. And I think the second time they were like, "Whoa!" I don't know. They were kind of into it or whatever. We were traveling in. I don't know why. We were traveling in a van together. Like I was traveling on their bus, and the next day they were like, "Have you recorded those songs that you were playing?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Where? You know, are they like on like a release?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've got this album, and I don't know who's going to put it out yet." So I had it like sitting in the can for a minute, and they said, "Well, can we hear it?" So I like, I don't know. So I ended up playing them the whole album while we were like from somewhere to somewhere else in England, and we kind of sat there. And I don't particularly like, you know, this sounds kind of bad, but like I don't really like, you know, if someone like says, you know, when someone like plays someone else their own music. You know, like sometimes people say to me, like, "Oh, can you listen to something I've written?" Or like listen to music, and I'm fine. Like I love hearing new music, and I love, you know, it's really nice if people want me to listen to their music, but it's very difficult if they're there. Like I find it difficult because I'm kind of like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like, should
Yeah,
I here and
it's
be
weird.
like,
Like it's like, can I just take this with me and have my time with it?
yeah, like I will listen to it. Like I'm not lying, but like I don't need to listen to it while you're right there. So for me, it was a bit weird to be like in the van, just like sitting next to the Bum Pops, like
Yeah,
while they
because
were
it's like, well, I mean, well, I guess they had already expressed that they were into it, but if had they not, it would have been kind of like, are they even gonna like this? Or are they just gonna be nice? And
totally. Yeah, I mean, they asked me to do it, so. But I played it for them, and then they said the minute the record was finished, Jen from the Bum Pops was kind of like, "So what's happening with this? Is someone putting it out?" And I said, "Oh, I don't really know." And then she said, "Well, who is there a label in mind?" And I said, "Well, I'd really love to put it out in Red Scare." And she was like, "Oh, we've worked with Red Scare, and we're really good friends with them. I'm pretty sure Toby would put this out." And I said, "Would he? I don't think he would." And they were like, I'm pretty sure he would." So anyway,
I'm
Jen,
sensing a theme here. This is the theme of Billy Liar.
I think you're right. As I was saying, like hearing myself say it, and it reminded me of the last fucking stupid anecdote that we got into, where I was, oh, yeah, like Joe being like, I'm pretty sure. They... So anyway, so they were like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Toby would put this out. So they like a few people had already like sent the record to Toby because I did have this idea that Red Scare might be interested, but Toby hadn't heard it at that point. So at that point, Jen from the Bomb Pops was kind enough to force Toby to listen to it, much in the way that I've just described as not necessarily, you know, a way that I like hearing music. But she basically said to Toby, like, you're gonna fucking listen to it. And then we're on a tour together, like after that Bomb Pops tour, and in the van, Jen was like, "Shut up, Toby, listen to this record." So she put it on and made him listen to it. And then Toby got in touch with me and said, "Let's meet up." So I went to Philadelphia. I played twice in Philadelphia on one tour, not last year, but the year before. And a few people were like, "Why are you coming back and playing this show?" Where I was like playing first before a bunch of other bands. And the reason why, it was like kind of different bands to my style as well. But the reason why was purely so that Toby could watch me play, because he'd never seen me live. I played at Fest, but he was working with Brendan Kelly from the Lawrence Arms at Fest. So like Brendan was playing around the same time that I was, so he had to be there with Brendan. So anyway, so after Fest, I went back to Philadelphia, played this fake show, which, you know, it was kind of weird. And like people came to see me play, but they were kind of like, "Why are you playing this gig?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, just, you know," I got asked, and they were like, "Well, you just played."
Showcase. Obviously, they're not going to sign an artist they've never seen live.
Yeah, exactly. So Toby was there, and obviously he'd heard the record at this point. And the minute I started playing the first song, he was singing along and like filming it. And I was like, "Oh, maybe this is good. Like maybe this is a good thing. So maybe this is gonna happen." And then like we had, you know, went to some bars that night, and the next day we went out for breakfast. And finally, I just said to him, like, are we gonna do this? Like, is this supposed to happen? Are we making a record? We hadn't talked about it the entire time. And I said, like, "Oh wait, are you gonna put this out?" And he was like, "Yeah, I think we should make a record." So I said, like, "Should we shake hands or something?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's shake hands." So we shook hands, and if you you know, on the inside of the album, there's a photograph of me and Toby shaking hands outside a place called the Tasty, and that's the place that we had breakfast that morning. Afterwards, obviously, we went outside and we took like a stupid like fake photograph where we're shaking hands, but we did shake hands like 10 minutes before that inside the place.
That's awesome. Oh, what a good story.
But yeah, that's a long way of answering your question. I don't think you were even asking me that. You were asking me about Stupid Rad, though.
I was asking about that, and just, you know, I wanted to talk about how you got on Red Scare, because it is a label that has put out a lot of really great stuff, and I can definitely see how you fit into their collection of artists.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's get into some silly questions. I want to ask you, best pickup line you've ever had said to you.
Well, pickup lines always make me a bit uncomfortable. Like, I think if anyone's ever said one to me, I always kind of go like, if anyone ever like tries to come on to me, I usually think they're being weird, and I don't know why they're saying what they're saying. So I get kind of like, what? And it kind of makes me a bit stressed out.
I'm seeing that about you now. Having talked to you for about an hour and a half now, I'm seeing the theme of your personality.
well, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah. Also, yeah. Well, okay. So the best pickup line. I think probably the best pickup line that's ever happened to me is the one that my current partner, said to me, which we've been going out for a few years now, and I played a gig in Glasgow. At a venue called Nice and Sleazy's, it's called, and I was opening for a band called Skinny Lister, who are like a great like folk punk band from England. They play like sea shanty type folk punk music. It's fantastic. But one of the things that they do is they have a singer that doesn't play an instrument, so she carries around like a flagon full of booze, and then like passes it out to the crowd because they're from the like folk punk background. They used to do tours on boats. So
like,
they would,
how is that going to work now post-COVID? Like, I feel like a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely no idea. That's a good question. I mean, yeah. Have you seen these like photographs of suits that we're going to have to be wearing? They're allegedly saying.
Somebody made a good point about birthday candles too. It's like, ew, I don't want to eat that cake that somebody just blew all over.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how any of this is going to work. Like, I don't know how gigs are going to work. I don't know how bars and restaurants are going to work. Like, how in the UK we're supposed to be able to meet each other from next weekend on. From this weekend on, we can meet people from outside our house, you know, who live in a different house. But you're still not allowed to hug each other, and you still have to stand like 2 meters apart. It's bizarre. So I haven't seen my parents for like months now. I don't live in the same city as my parents, and we've been in lockdown for like 2 and a bit months or something now. So like, I think I might try and meet one of my parents like next weekend, but I can't hug. I can't. I'll have to stand like 2 meters away from them. It's fuck knows.
Okay, so back to Skinny Lister and their flagon
Oh,
of booze that they pass around, which probably won't be happening anymore.
probably not. I guess the chat blend was basically Bria, who is on the PayPal email address. She was doing merch for Skinny Lister at that show, and I was obviously doing merch at my own table because I opened the show, and she during Skinny Lister's show ended up holding the flagon and carrying, passing it around to other people because she was doing merch. So she was also like helping out with their overall stage show. And so she had this flagon full of booze. I think it was rum or whiskey. I can't remember what. Bria
What exactly is a flagon? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Like just like a jug.
It's like a giant jug. Yeah, it's like jug. Like yeah, like you say, it's not very hygienic, but it's a thing, and they just get booze up from the backstage and they just fucking chuck it in this big flagon, and then they pass it around, and it just gets everyone like pretty sauced up while they're playing. So I think the chat line that worked for me was Bria just saying like, "Do you want some of this flagon? Like, here you go." Like passing me a full of booze, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, and then drank some of it, and yeah, and we've been together pretty much ever since, I suppose. So
I feel like just because for me, flagon is a foreign word. Like I got what you meant when you first said it, but that is a word that I, as an American, would never say. So
yeah.
I feel like if somebody came up to me, was like, "Would you like some of this flagon?"
You'd be like, "Get the fuck away from me!" Like,
no, I think I'd be into it because it's just funny as fuck.
Oh, well, that works too.
Because it's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe if that's a word in your vocabulary that you use more regularly than it.
No, it's like it's a very old word, and like we don't. Yeah, it's not a regular word, but I think I maybe just know it from Skinny Lister, or it's definitely like a very old-fashioned word. It's like a pirate would have like a flagon of. Is that right? Is that where it's from? I think so. Like it's more like a kind of like sea term. Like on a ship, you might have like a flagon full of booze.
I'm so into it even more now. I was telling my friend the other day, I was telling him, I was like, I'm going to be a pirate. I'm going to be a pirate.
Yeah, me too. That sounds good.
But then he's also, you want to rape and pillage? And I was like, no, not that kind of pirate. And he's like, well, that's what pirates do. And I was like, well, I'm going to be an Erin pirate where I just like, wear bikinis and get drunk on rum on beaches.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. I think like touring life is a lot of musicians end up kind of feeling like pirates. Like there's definitely like a feeling of being a pirate, I think, when you're a touring musician. But yeah, definitely none of the other things. Fuck.
It's like, we'll skip the raping and pillaging and just go with the flagons of rum.
That sounds much better.
Okay, so worst pickup line you've ever had said to you?
Worst pickup line. Yeah, I mean, I get kind of uncomfortable if anyone says any pickup lines to me. If someone offered me a flagon and I didn't know who they were, I'd be like, I don't know. I guess one time this is a kind of like very specific situation, but one time before I like had any visible tattoos, I was like, this is a long time ago. I was working in a bar in Edinburgh, and this girl like was trying to come on to me she was a tattoo artist, and she was like sloppy drunk, and she kept like grabbing my arm and being like, oh, like let me tattoo you, and like she kept saying like, oh, you've got such beautiful skin, and I'd be like, oh, a blank canvas and all this shit, and I was like, the fuck away from me. And like I went downstairs and I was like collecting glasses in the gig room because there was like a live gig on, and I had like a big stack of like pint glasses, like it's easy to carry, but if someone like knocks into you, it's a bit sketchy. And she just like ran over and like grabbed me by the arms and like hug me, and I was like holding these glasses. So is that a chat line? She was just trying to flirt with me, I guess, but like in a really aggressive way, and it was awful. It was horrible. Yeah, I just don't like
weird. The whole skin thing just reminds me of what is that like? The thing it puts the lotion on its skin.
What's that?
Like that, it was like a serial killer or something that like really happened, and he he would like make his victims lotion up their skin first because then he'd take their skin off and he would wear it.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was a real thing. And then it became like a joke after that of like, if you ever saw that movie, that American movie, Joe Dirt, you know, he drops the basket down with the lotion in it and he's like, it puts the lotion on its skin. It just, that lady coming up to you and saying that, it kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, oh, you have such beautiful skin.
I haven't seen that film. Did I see that film? What's it called? Joe Dirt?
Joe Dirt, yeah. It's with David Spade, and it's really fucking funny. It's, I mean, I don't know, it's American funny, so I don't know if you'll think it's funny. Different humor.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so finish the sentence. Blank is Billy Liar's weakness.
Oh, probably music, I suppose. Just because, like, like the minute I started playing music, like my life turned around, and I've never looked back. So like pretty much everything in my life has been focused on this one particular thing, for better or for worse. So I've only ever had one path ever since then. So I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I guess music's my only weakness, my kryptonite.
Aww, that's cute. So sincere. Okay, so last question I have for you. Most embarrassing moment in your career as a musician?
Most embarrassing moment. I don't, you know, I guess I kind of talked about like being anxious at points in this interview, but I don't get like embarrassed by things, which I think is you know, potentially not a good thing all the time. But I think because of like touring so much and kind of like having so many experiences in my life and meeting so many people, I don't get embarrassed by things, I guess is what I'm saying. But I definitely have situations that I suppose other people would find embarrassing. One of the situations which I'll tell you about is this was a while ago, but my friends play in a band called the Dead Class. They're like a punk band. They used to play at Rebellion a lot. They're a great band from Liverpool. The singer is Northern Irish, and he's a good friend of mine. They're great. They toured with the Queers. You know the Queers, the old pop punk band.
Yeah, I've interviewed Joe from the Queers. He's nice. He's a nice guy.
Nice. Yeah, a great band. And they were playing together in Glasgow, and I was living in Glasgow at the time, so I went along to the gig. I wasn't on tour at the time, and I went along. And the Dead Class sometimes covered one of my songs. They covered a song called "Change," which is on my record. So because I've been playing music for so long, that's an older song that I've re-recorded a few times. But the version on my record is "Some Legacy" is my favorite version of that song. Anyway, but it meant that the Dead Class had been playing the song "Change" in a punk rock way for a long time before I recorded it the way it was supposed to be recorded. So sometimes if I was in the right situation, if we were playing a gig together, they would invite me on stage and say, hey, we're going to play a Billy Liar song now. This is Billy, and I'd get on stage and sing along. Like we did it at Rebellion, you know, multiple times, and we did it at lots of different gigs together. But this one time, they were opening for the Queers, that I met up with Billy in the bar before they played, and he said, just so you know, if you think we're going to play your song tonight, we're definitely not, because we've only got a 30-minute set. And I said, no worries, that's totally fine. And he said, you know, just so you know, it's only a half-hour set, so we're definitely not going to invite you up, just in case you were going to have that in your head while we were playing. And I said, that's great, I'm really glad that you told me that, because otherwise I would have that in my head the whole time. So I relaxed, and I didn't think about playing, and I kind of thought, oh, I don't need to think about this. And I had some drinks or whatever, and they were playing, and then they got to the last song in their set, and then Billy always calls me his little Braveheart. He's like, oh, you're my wee Braveheart. So he was like, over the PA, he was like, right, for the last song, fuck it, we're going to get our wee Braveheart on the stage. We're going to do a Billy Liar song. Here we go. And then they started playing it, and I was like, fuck, I didn't know I was playing. So like,
yeah, that's kind of fucked up to do that to you, to like tell you, okay, go ahead and relax.
And then invite me on. Yeah, so I got on stage, and they're a three-piece. So there's like a guitar player one side, Billy, and then a bass player, Jake, on the other side, and then a drummer, Tony, is at the back. So there's the three-piece, and there was a one microphone in the middle that was spare. So I was like, well, I'll just take this microphone, and that'll be mine. So I went on stage anyway, and I like picked up the microphone, and the minute I started singing, I like sang it a bit, but I realized, like, you know when like a microphone's not like like no one's supposed to be using it, obviously, because I wasn't even like I didn't know I was singing. The sound engineer didn't know I was singing. No one knew I was singing. So like the microphone was too like coiled around the stand.
Yeah.
So it meant that I couldn't really move. So I was like, this is kind of shit. Like if someone gets on stage to do guest vocals, you want the person in the last song of the band set to like jump around a bit. And so I thought, well, I'll have to jump around a bit. So I got on stage and I sang like the first line of the song. And then I thought, well, I'll just uncoil it while I'm singing and then I'll like carry on. So I started to uncoil it. And well, basically while I did, I like accidentally pulled the microphone out. The microphone wasn't working properly, and then I got in this whole like situation where I was coiled up with the wires, and I put my foot on the monitor, which is on the front of the stage, and I fell off the front of the stage. So I like fell off with the microphone all cobbled together, which wasn't really working, and I was like lying on my back. No one, instead of anyone trying to catch me, they all just like parted ways. So I was like lying with a big gash on my leg, and I like.
It's like, well, thanks, guys. Thank you.
I got back on the stage and I was like, fuck, what do? We were in the middle of like the second verse. So it was like the song was almost over. And at that point, Billy like said, like, he was playing the guitar, but he was like, you can use my mic. So I like went over and I got his mic and it was like wrapped up in his pedals and I couldn't see that. So I just went like, oh, mic then, pulled it out and I ripped out all his guitar pedals. So he couldn't even, like his guitar wasn't even plugged in anymore. So they finished up the song with me just like, oh, fuck, I don't know what to do. No guitar, and the bass player and the drummer were just like laughing and laughing and laughing, and like that was the end of their set. And they were like, afterwards, I was embarrassed. I was more just like ashamed. It was like their last song of a gig in Glasgow in front of a lot of people, like a new audience, and they came up to me and they were all laughing, and they were like, that was our favorite part of the tour so far. That was our favorite part. And
did anybody get any video of that?
I don't think so. I think there's a photograph, a really horrible photograph. This is a horrible story, but you know, when you kind of grow up in the punk scene, you sort of do things that are weird and disgusting, and you know, we're talking about stuff that won't happen again after the virus, I suppose. Billy like grabbed my leg, he's the singer, and he like licked all the blood out of my leg, like at the merch stand, and someone took a photo of that. So it's like a photograph of Billy like licking all this blood out of a big gash in my leg. But you know.
That's really gross. Like even before like the virus, it's like you could get a lot of diseases from that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any diseases, thankfully. You know, knock on wood. So I guess he'll be okay. But it was definitely a disgusting thing to do. But when you grow up in the punk scene, people just do shit like that, you know. And you just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's happened.
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea though.
I didn't know he was going to do that. I just like he was like, oh, show me the gash. So I like pulled up my trousers. You know, like showed him my leg, and then he went like, ah, and licked it. I took a picture of it.
So gross. That's so fucking gross.
I don't know why. Sorry, there you go. But...
Well, that's all the questions I have, so I want to close with, will you play us another song?
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Woo!
All right.
Everybody watching out there, I pinned Billy's PayPal where you can send tips. So send him money because all his tours have been postponed or canceled.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I'll play the song. I'll play the song "Change" because this is the song that the Dead Class would cover. This is like a different way of playing it to the way on the record. I've played this song in a lot of different ways over the years, but at the moment when I play it acoustically, I play it this way. But when I play it live with the band, it's a lot faster. But all right, the song's called "Change." Put away my party shoes, cut off my mohawk. I need to back up my arguments, not just be all talk. I'm so bored of watching bands all just fade into the same song, the same band. No one's saying anything, nothing's getting done. I wanna see your blood spill on the stage. I wanna hear your heartbeat through the PA. I wanna hear true adolescent rage. I wanna be inspired. I wanna to see something change. I'm tired of drinking until the band get better. I wanna hear bands that make me dance even when I'm sober. Reunion tours, rocking the cash box, since we get back together when hell was frozen over. I wanna see your blood spill on the stage. I wanna hear your heartbeat through the PA. I wanna hear true adolescent rain. I wanna be inspired. I wanna see something change. Is that too much to ask? Probably. I wanna see your blood spill on the stage. I wanna hear your heartbeat through the PA. I wanna hear through adolescent rain. I wanna be inspired. I wanna see something change.
Woo! Well, that's all I have for today. This was a long one. I want to thank you so much for taking the time and for being here and sharing your stories. Everyone go follow Billy at Official Billy Liar. Go stream his new record on Spotify. Where can people buy your merch?
They can buy it from Stupid Rad.
Yeah.
StupidRadMerch.com/Billy Liar. That's got all the new like merch bundles, like hoodies and enamel pins, and they can buy records on there as well. They can buy records from Red Scare, or if you're in the UK or Europe, you can also buy stuff through my Bandcamp. I can send it anywhere in the world, I should say, but obviously postage is more expensive if you buy it from wherever you're not. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being here and for playing your songs and sharing your stories. I appreciate it.
No worries. It's been a blast. Thanks.
All right, well, have a good night.
Hey, you too. Bye.
Bye.